All right. There comes a time where and when you have to, you have to kind of, we know about boundaries, right? And keeping them and all that stuff. But sometimes you have to be a little bit more proactive in how you vet the type of people that are around you. And specifically, we're talking about users, right? Because within this community, a lot of times everything is focused on narcissistic people, right? But there are some human nature aspects of people that will do some of the same traits that you'll catch going on, or you'll see going on amongst the interactions with certain types of people. And many of you have found yourself being exploited by users, right? People who are comfortable constantly receiving from you, but never returning, never showing gratitude, so to speak, right? And whether it's for attention, money, or whatever other resources, it could be emotional support or whatever. They they often, a lot of these types of people often have little regard for the needs or well-being of you. And oftentimes you will find them taking your kindness for weakness, right? Or they'll take advantage of your kindness. They'll take advantage of your generosity. So this is where being proactive about establishing boundaries come in a significant way, right? Because over time, you'll find yourself feeling just this uneasy feeling, right? When you know that you've put out, you've been giving. It could be friends, it could be family, associates, whatever. But these individuals are the primary people that come to you for assistance or help or whatever, and you're always there, right? And this is why I say both users and narcissists share traits like emotional manipulation. That's not just a narcissistic type of thing. Sense of entitlement. That's not just a narcissistic type of thing. And there's also, not to the extreme, but there's some lack of empathy in some instances with certain individuals, right? The main difference is narcissists often have an inflated sense of self-importance, while users are prone to just being opportunistic. They're opportunists, right? So the main thing I want to discuss is protecting yourself from these type of individuals, and to start understanding that you have the right to set appropriate boundaries, even if they don't like them, right? Sometimes you get those who start out asking small favors, which is part of the setup, right? They'll ask a small favor and they'll see if you're willing to return that favor. And if you do a small favor, because after all, what, it's just a small favor. But the small favor increasingly gets bigger and bigger, right? Next, it's a little bit of a bigger favor, then a big. Some don't even start out with a small favor. Some go right for the gusto. If they don't get resistance, right, some will create sob stories with it because they've monitored you and they see how empathetic you are, right? How certain things pull on your heartstring. and it gets you to move. You're compelled to want to do something or to give your assistance, right? When you see this type of thing, again, it has to be this way. There's things that you do and you don't want to keep tab on it, right? You don't want to keep having to say, well, I did this for you, I did that, but you have to. Amongst people today, in the world today, there's a lot of selfish people. There's a lot of people that are only for them and only consider themselves. So you have to tax them in a certain way. So keeping tab is one of them. And you have to have a limit, right? If you're one of those individuals that's giving and giving, set yourself a limit, a budget on how much you're willing or how much assistance you will ever give at one time without something being reciprocated in return. Because if you're one that's constantly giving and giving and giving, and there's no requirement back from the individuals that you're giving from, trust and believe they will keep taking. And they won't even think anything about it. They'll just, oh, that's the way they are. Well, I can always go to them if they if I need something. And if they got it, they're going to do it. And 90% of the time, they're going to go through and do it. So early, you have to set a boundary. Growing up in the Black community, you had this thing where it didn't make sense to me when I was younger, but when you ask certain relatives for something and you get a whole lecture from us, right? You might ask $20. I'm just throwing something out there. And before you get the $20, you get a whole lecture. Well, they like, sit down. Before I give you this 20, I want you to know something. I works hard for my money. Really, really hard for my money. And for you to just be asking me for this money when I have to work, you know how much overtime I worked last week to get this, to have what I have, right? And you used to get those lectures back then, and you used to think, oh, damn, if I got to go through all of this to ask for $20, let me pass on it, right? Unless it's absolutely necessary. But that was something key and important. The reason why the lecture before that, it's really setting a boundary. It's giving you an understanding that this isn't just me handing this out to you just because. But you need to know how hard I work for this. You need to know that this is taking me a lot to do and give to you as well. Because if the person has no standard and it's just like, oh, you'll just give it because they come with a sob story and you're feeling sorry for them, they never really grasp the significance, the importance of, what you've done, right? It's not really appreciated the same way. It doesn't really cross their mind because they feel like, well, if you got it, you always got it, and then just keep on giving. Even if they're not entitled, they will build a degree of entitlement over a period of time. If you're one that gives freely, you will condition that person, right? And so people will actually, as I'm saying, get programmed. Well, you become an enabler to people running to you with their problems and expecting you to solve or do something about it. And over a period of time, you will have positioned yourself to be looked at as just someone who people come to when they're in need. That'll be the role, the position that they will have labeled and placed on you, and therefore treat you as. And that's not where you want to be. It's really not where you want to be, because you will get burnt out over time. And let me tell you something, there's nothing worse. Well, I won't say nothing worse, but it's a very bad feeling to feel as though you give and you're not fully appreciated. It's not a good feeling. So the biggest thing to do is to establish giving or assisting in the way that you have, right? A lot of people, if you have them around, you'll notice when you do something for them, they make you feel special or valued, right? But you have to stay grounded and resist the urge to fall into those tactics of them making you feel good about doing for them, right? Avoid flattery. Avoid excessive praise, unless it's deserved, of course. But focus on genuine connections with people who value you for who you are and not what you can do for them. Because that's what happens when you begin to put out and just put out, right? People will only value you for what you can do for them. And this is why a lot of you find yourselves being used in multiple situations with different types of individuals, right? You have to stay consistent with this. And it's some of you don't have the heart to be rude when necessary, right? So because you don't want to be rude, you'll go ahead and do something. Or you have a game plan to go in and not do it, but you end up doing it anyway. You have to find a way to really stick to your guard. No matter how much it disappoints the other person. A lot of you have a fear of disappointing people. A fear of worrying about what they're going to think about you. Listen, if they're not taking care or providing for you in the same way, then it doesn't matter what they think about you. Because you're the one that's going to get used and burnt out in the end. So, keeping that in mind, some of you are going to have to build up that mentality to be able to say no and not give a damn, not care. Some of you are going to have be able to stand up and be okay with disappointing them because you're not going to do it or you can't do it. Because some of you will go out your way extending yourself beyond what you are capable of even doing at the moment. Because you don't want to disappoint that person that's asking from you or that's needing from you. But you have to remember, you have to always put yourself first. Self-care is very important. And being mindful of that, right? You have to be mindful of that particular aspect of self-care. Very important. Because if you don't do it, nobody's going to really stick around and make sure that, you know, you're all good to go. Right? So you have to make sure that you're looking out for yourself and taking care of yourself. It's absolutely important. Yeah, but you have to start to and learn how to get comfortable with, you know, turning down requests from a lot of these people who have been coming to you as a supply source. Well, making you the supply source, and they're coming to you. Now, yes, you're going to piss people off. You're going to make some mad. You're going to make some not want to deal with you anymore. But that's a good thing, because that's showing you who basically was worthy and in your corner and who wasn't. Who had your best interest, who was genuine and who wasn't. Because a lot of you got people that's in your circle, that's around you, that's really don't even give a damn about you. Really don't even care about you like that. All right? So just something to think about. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. If this helped you in any way, consider to like, subscribe, share. Until next time, have a good one.